I opened the data burst that Omega had sent me and set to work examining the details. Some directors don't bother familiarizing themselves with the details and instead rely on others, like me, to fill them in during the decision-making meetings. One could expect that I'd be annoyed. After all, to the untrained eye, it would appear to be laziness. But Omega never suggested lazy or incompetent people as directors, no matter how ingenious they were. A director's duties are important, but there are other duties that are just as important. Before my retirement, I had been president of Alpha Centauri. Omega recruited me during that period of my life, and I didn't often have the luxury of fully examining the details. Thankfully, other directors and even Omega itself had picked up the slack and kept me informed. Now, it's my turn to do the same. An enemy stronghold, several enemy-held systems, evidence of xenocide, technical schematics for enemy ships, and the warp disruptor technology. The Armstrong had even warped directly to Sol and given the data to Admiral Bakir so that he could enact the no-retreat doctrine in the system despite knowing that it would result in them participating in defensive action. Outstanding. I'll recommend him for a medal. Distinguished service, perhaps? Depending on how involved in the combat Captain Neal is, we might even be able to swing a Medal of Valor. The evidence of xenocide was troubling, though. Something was bothering me, but I couldn't quite place it. Not the xenocide itself, that was fairly standard. It was hard to find a race that didn't have its share of war criminals. Gaunt, human, Alumarai, even the Nu had plenty. The Nu were a peace-loving folk, but that made their war criminals all the more cruel, as if they feel that they have to prove themselves. General Onari Vlad Kluztan maintained his infamy even hundreds of years later for crucifying and impaling his opponents. He had drawn inspiration from human history and had stricken fear into the Alumarai before his summary execution. That had been a troublesome war. Both sides were actively members of the United Systems, so humanity needed to maintain neutrality to keep it from falling apart. We had encouraged diplomatic solutions and kept the fighting as even as possible through weapons sales. The entire conflict was over a stupid platinum-rich planet that was on the borders of their space. The Nu had got there first, but the Alumarai had been planning colonization for a decade. The whole thing lit off over such a simple resource. Oh, that's what's bothering me. Why would the machines just leave resources? The scans showed about 3 fleets worth of debris and several mineral-rich asteroids. What's the point of killing everyone if not to claim a prize? It suggested that their goal for the invasion was to actually eradicate these aliens. I sighed. Motive is important in being able to determine what your enemy is going to do next. If their motive is eradication, then we know they'll keep attacking Sol. But that makes this stronghold a tad perplexing. Perhaps it was their home system, or maybe they felt they didn't need the resources in the alien system. Either way, the scans showed heavy industrialization in this stronghold system. They're manufacturing something, but the Armstrong hadn't gotten close enough to be able to determine what. The only thing we know is that there are several different types of factory, and they're nearly covering the entire surface of the 5 planets in the system. A lot of mysteries might be solved if we were able to successfully invade these planets. We would be able to determine what they were making and maybe even get some clues about their motives. It would be so much easier to just have the Nidhogg fry the sun, though. Not much can survive a supernova, the Nidhogg itself being an exception. On the other hand, an invasion might not be prohibitively difficult. I opened the scans of the alien planet. They hadn't been able to determine the specifics of the enemy weaponry, which is to be expected. You'd have to have boots on the ground for that, and the Armstrong didn't have landing craft. I sighed again as I realized what I was going to have to do. Prior to becoming Alpha Centauri's president, I had been one of the foremost minds in personal weapons tech. I opened the images of the bodies and tried very hard not to associate the corpses of the children with my own great-grandchildren. The wounds were indicative of energy weapons, lasers, crude ones too. Relatively low heat compared to what we normally use. The burns were enough to be fatal, but it didn't appear that they penetrated through the bodies. Hot enough to boil organs, but not hot enough to penetrate a Guardian shield without extended concentrated fire. Of course, that's assuming that the aliens don't have some strange tolerance to heat. If they had been human or gaunt, I'd have been able to determine roughly how many enemy lasers firing at once and for how long it would take to pop a Guardian shield. If these wounds are analogous, then it's 12 for 10 seconds. If not, then who knows? 2 message notifications interrupted my investigation, an after-action report regarding the defense of Seoul and a short and simple communication from an unknown source. CITCOM 1021A Secure Communication 1021 Alpha Meeting Time. I opened the secret application Omega had installed on my computer and entered in my credentials. Then I waited for the AI to finish scanning me and my connection. Director 1 has joined the chat, Director 2 has joined. The chat Director 9 has joined the chat D6. Welcome all. This meeting will be held without Director 3, who is unable to join us due to his diplomatic assignment. Director 3's vote will be given to AI Omega as per protocol. Understood. D4. I've got the after-action report opened. The Armstrong kamikazed? D5. It would appear so, correct. The vessel's FTLD was crippled and Captain Neal was left with the decision to shut the ship down and certainly die, or to use the FTLD to destroy the enemy. D4, an unenviable choice. I take it you know this because you were the classified crew member? Correct. D2, why were you aboard? Captain Neal asked to speak to me. We became acquainted during his time aboard the USS Nidhogg and he sought my advice. Before our conversation concluded, the OU attacked and I volunteered to assist as shipboard AI. D2, did you retrieve your black box? Yes. DD2, death has long been a fascination of yours. Did you find it illuminating? D4, that's irrelevant. Discuss it in your personal time. D2, forgive me. Returning to the subject at hand, what was our total casualty count? D5, 48 damaged vessels, 1 destroyed, 103 total casualties, 72 dead, 31 injured. Better than it could have been, considering the enemy had more than double what we thought they would. D2, agreed. We need to not underestimate them further. D10, we should send a fleet to protect Seoul. D1, 4th Fleet is halfway through their leave period and at full strength. We could have them defend Seoul. D13, 5 million ships would be overkill. D11, overkill is better than no kill. D1, I agree with Director 11. We will also have to formally issue the no-retreat doctrine in regards to the Omni-Union. D12, are they really xenocidal? D2, yes. D4, yes. D1, yes. D5, the evidence indicates that they are. It's pretty damning. D12, understood. D9, what about the Republic? Did they have foreknowledge of the xenocidal traits of the OU? D8, I have information to the contrary. Admiral Bakir and Captain Reynolds have interrogated shiphead Yulina. Yulina denies knowledge, and all present report that they believe he's being truthful. We'll still need an official statement from the Republic, though. D9, I see. Well, they're unlikely to openly admit it with 4th Fleet in Seoul. D7, it doesn't matter. There are procedures for this. We should update Director 3 on the situation, get an answer through diplomatic channels. D1, I'll send Director 3 the message. D9, I'm more interested in what we do with the ships that are currently defending Seoul. D1, all but the Thanatos and the Loa Lana are part of 10th Fleet. The battleships and carriers are all still warp-capable, so we can have the ships repaired in Wolf 359. Once they're repaired, they can return to their former duties. D2, Bakir's going to be sore about Hecate relieving him. D7, and what about the Thanatos and Loa Lana? D1, neither ship was damaged, and we'll need a liaison between Republic and U.S. forces when the Republic arrives. Placing a single ship under our command is one thing, but there's no chance in hell they'd do the same for an entire fleet. So, we'll need to coordinate, and the Thanatos and Loa Lana are in a perfect position to do so. D6, regarding the defense of Seoul, the plan is to replace the current defenders with 4th Fleet, have the current defenders repair in Wolf 359 and return to their previous posts with 10th Fleet, and have the USS Thanatos with the RSV Loa Lana docked act as an impromptu joint command center between the United Systems and Republic forces. Admiral Bakir of 10th Fleet will be relieved by Admiral Hecate of 4th Fleet. The no-retreat doctrine will go into effect in regards to the Omni-Union. Director 1 will send an update to Director 3, and Director 3 will get an official response from the Republic regarding foreknowledge of the Omni-Union's xenocidal actions. D9, I concur. D2, I concur. D5, I concur. D13, I concur. D6, I concur. D1, I concur. D10, I concur. D12, I concur. Oh, I concur. D7, I concur. D8, I concur. D4, I concur. D11, I concur. D6, the plan of action is agreed upon. Next agenda item is the invasion of the Omi Union stronghold. D2, a hasty invasion will not be to our benefit. D4, I disagree. We know very little about our enemy and do not have the luxury of being able to set up a spy network. The only way to learn more about them is through direct confrontation. D7, we should just call the Nidhogg in. Respectfully, I disagree. After reviewing the relevant data, I believe that we would stand to learn a lot from a ground invasion. D5, the enemy has 250 million ships at its disposal. D4, allegedly. D5, yes, allegedly. We haven't seen the full brunt of that in Seoul, but if we were to attack this stronghold, there's a good chance that the response would be extreme. We will need to be prepared for that. D2, not to mention the retaliation if we Nidhogg the system. D10, they attacked us unprovoked and killed our men. They've repeatedly attacked Seoul, seemingly with the intent to commit xenocide. We should absolutely respond in kind. Truth be told, we don't know what this system actually is. If it's their home system, then destroying it would set them back severely. If it isn't, and they have more, we need to know that. It would take a long time to scout all of their systems, especially if they realize that we're doing so, which they definitely will after our attack on this stronghold. D1, I agree. We should seize control of the system and learn as much as we can about the enemy. Hitting them is all well and good, but I prefer to hit them where it hurts the most, and I don't know where that is yet. D13, we can seize the system, defend it while gathering intel, and once the intel is gathered, we can remove our forces and Nidhogg the system. D5, we would still have to have forces that could not only withstand a full attack from the enemy, but also a planetary invasion. We don't know how many boots they have or what weapons they have available. D1, I've done a rudimentary analysis of the attack on the now extinct alien world. They appear to use relatively low-output energy weapons, lasers. The Guardian shield should be able to handle it. D10, you're starting to convince me. D1, what munitions should we use in your opinion? D1, standard-issue kinetic weapons should do the trick. Mechanical enemies are more resistant to energy weapons than they are to armor-piercing bullets. D7, I'm coming around as well. 7th Fleet would be able to be recalled. Halaray 3 is nearly pacified, so their presence there isn't a necessity. 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th fleets are all able to be recalled for the invasion without devastating results to pacification efforts if 10th Fleet covers for them. 1st Fleet is maintaining their vigil above the Deloran homeworld. 4th Fleet will be defending Seoul. 6th Fleet's presence in Rangoor is necessary as there is heavy fighting. In total, 6 fleets, 30 million ships. D2. How many Marines is that? A minimum of 750 million and maximum of 15 billion. At the moment, there are 3,251,627,111 Marines stationed with those fleets. The fleets will need to be refitted with spare landers if you plan to use more than 1 billion Marines at a time. D4. That should be more than enough unless the enemy weaponry is more advanced than we think. D1. We can use Alpha Centauri as our staging ground. We have a stockpile of landers stored on Proxima B. I would also like to send some copies to assist with the intel gathering. D2. Do you think their systems will be able to handle you? Their systems can handle me. The problem is that they're confining and make it difficult to destroy the VI inhabiting the systems. I'm confident that I can manage, though. D6. The plan of action regarding the invasion of the Omni Union stronghold is to recall the 2nd, 3rd, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th fleets as well as the USS Nidhogg to Alpha Centauri and begin preparations to invade. Once preparations are complete, the combined fleets will invade the OU stronghold along with AI Omega and take control of the system and invade the planets with ground forces while the USS Nidhogg takes position. The system will be defended from Omni Union ingress until information has been gathered. Once intel gathering is complete, our forces will exit the system and the USS Nidhogg will destroy it. I concur. D9, I disagree. D6, I concur. D1, I concur. D10, I concur. D12, I disagree. D7, I concur. D2, I disagree. D5, I disagree. D13, I concur. D8, I concur. D4, I concur. D11, I concur. D6, the plan of action is decided. We'll readdress it as needed. There are no further agenda items. Director 2 has left the chat. Director 1 has left the chat. After I finished closing out of the application, I leaned back in my chair with a heavy sigh. I rubbed the bridge of my nose for a moment before opening a new secure mail. I addressed it to Director 3, care of Omega, and wrote down everything that had happened. I also made it clear that Director 3 would have to broach the subject of the OU being xenocidal. It felt as if I was on autopilot as I typed. Once I was finished, Omega wordlessly sent the message over subspace communications to his alter ego in Republic space. Omega's avatar looked at me for a moment before winking out of existence. I wondered if the AI knew what had me feeling this tired. I knew what was bothering me. It's pretty obvious. A task that I had been looking forward to just a few minutes ago. Now it felt empty. Sad, even. I need to send a recommendation for a posthumous Medal of Honor. I have good news, Director 3, I said to the armored alien as I sat at the meeting table. The Republic is mustering a fleet of 2 million ships that will be ready to jump to Sol in 4 days. I couldn't help but feel a little intimidated by the 3 aliens in the room. 2 of them were absolutely massive. I could tell by their stance and their lack of movement that they were military. The director had called them Marines. They were wearing olive drab armor but had removed their helmets. It bothered me how both of them stared straight ahead. Even as I walked in, their eyes didn't move. I had a feeling that they could still see me, though. This effect was compounded by the slightly smaller human in the black armor. He had not removed his helmet at all. He also arrived before me and left after me. It gave the appearance that he hadn't left that chair since his arrival. At least he wasn't quite as stoic as the Marines, though. That is good news. I've received word that we were able to successfully defend Sol from another incursion, but we are expecting more attacks, he said. Were there any casualties? I asked, fearing for my brother. Yes, one. A ship called the USS Armstrong. The RSV Loalana is fine, he said. I'm sorry for your loss, I said, embarrassed that I had been that easy to read. And thank you. You're welcome, Director 3 said. Now there is something that we have to discuss. In preparation for offensive action against the Omni Union, we sent scouts into their territory. Just before the attack on Sol, we discovered an alien planet that had been attacked by the Omni Union. There were no survivors of this alien race. Silence filled the room as I struggled to comprehend multiple things at once. First, the humans were able to scout while also defending a system from Omni Union attacks, preparing offensive action. But also, what do you mean there were no survivors? I asked. Just that, he responded. The Omni Union committed xenocide. There is no doubt that this is the case. The OU attacked the system, destroyed the defending fleet, commenced a planet-wide orbital bombardment, and then landed an invasion force to eliminate any survivors. I was stunned. I don't... Shiphead Yulina has already informed us that the Republic is unaware that the Omni Union is xenocidal. Still, we need a formal pledge that that's the case, preferably before we accept the Republic's reinforcements, Director 3 said. This is a lot all at once. A formal pledge that we didn't know that the OU is xenocidal. Before our reinforcements arrive in Sol? Why? Yes, we can definitely do that, but may I ask why? I asked tenuously. If it is the case that the Republic intentionally withheld information regarding the fact that the OU is xenocidal, we cannot imagine a benevolent reason for doing so. At best, it's willful negligence that could have cost the lives of billions. At worst, it's a subversive act of hostility, he explained. I understand. I'll have the pledge ready by tomorrow. And I want to assure you that we were completely ignorant of the OU's xenocidal disposition, I said with all the sincerity I could muster. We exchanged parting pleasantries, and I tried my best not to run to my temporary office. High Command needed to be informed of this immediately. The enemy is xenocidal, and our failing to find that out sooner has nearly cost us what may become a close ally in this fight. Oh shit, my poor brother. Our standard protocol, if the roles were reversed, would be to confine the potential enemies to quarters pending an investigation. As I entered my office, a thought occurred to me. Why would the United Systems policy be any different? What investigation had they done? They obviously would have interrogated Yulina, but would they go farther than that? There is a fully sentient AI aboard the station. No, I had been assured by the intel guy that the AI couldn't access classified files because there aren't any and the station doesn't have extranet access. I calmed down even further when I realized that I didn't exactly know what the extent of our own investigation would be. Interrogations and a handshake promise of innocence is probably all we'd be able to muster. But the US is so much more advanced than we are, so why would they leave it at that? To demonstrate their desire for peace? Or because such a potential diplomatic black eye mattered so little to them due to their overwhelming force capabilities? I opened a subspace text line to the main Diplomatic Corps office. To Diplomatic Corps Central Office, Senate City. The United Systems has discovered that the Omni Union is xenocidal. They have evidence of this and will provide it if asked. They require a formal pledge that our government was ignorant of this fact and did not intentionally withhold it from them before they will continue to work with us. Please draft the documents and have them signed before end of business day tomorrow. Send immediately upon signature. From Ambassador Yuluni, Alira 2.